All right. Welcome to the Pivot webinar. I'm Bruce Firestone, your host, and we've got lots of people on today, and again from all over, from Canada, the United States. We might be having some people join us from Mumbai and other places. So I'm really appreciative of you all taking time to spend with me today in what has become a very difficult situation for many of us. So I am sharing my screen, and Jill, simply because I can see you, can you just give me the thumbs up that you can see my screen okay? Thank you, Jill. I really appreciate it. So again, there'll be a recording of this. It will get uploaded onto YouTube. Everybody will get the link. And so for people who couldn't share with us today live, they'll be able to watch it on their own time. Everybody, I think, has discovered the chat box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a presentation on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And what I would ask people to do is, if they have questions during the presentation, just put them in the chat box. I'll try not to talk too long. I am an old professor in every sense of the word, so I could talk for 3 hours. I'm not going to do that. But if you don't mind, put them in the chat box, and at the end, I will come back and look at any questions that you have. I think everybody is muted now, so that if the dog is barking or the kids need attention, well, you can give them attention and it won't disturb the webinar. So use the chat box. Remember that there will be a YouTube recording of this, and I think that's about it. So let's get going. Let's see if we can get at this. This is a webinar which is preparatory to a course that I want to give over the next 3 months, May, June, and July. It's called Pivot, Turn Yourself into a Gigpreneur. A lot of people don't know what a gigpreneur is. It's just an entrepreneur, but that's kind of a more modern term for people who have a side hustle, which might turn into a real business. So start your own business in just 3 months with practically no money down. I've been doing this for a long time. So this webinar will tell you a little bit more. I'll tell you more about me a little bit later on in this, but I have a civil engineering degree and a master's of engineering science and a PhD, which I'll talk a little bit more later. I'm a real estate investment and business coach. I'm a real estate broker with Century 21. And I'm also the Ottawa Senators founder. That's an NHL hockey team. That was an expansive franchise back in 1992. And you can see my contact information here. I don't have to tell you all. I mean, we are facing an incredible crisis. I went back to the beginning of the industrial age, which started in the early 1700s, and I could not find a situation which was comparable to what we're going through today. China's economy went down by, I think, 40% in the first 3 months of this year. Canada's economy is probably going to experience something similar. I just heard that we can expect a $250 billion federal government deficit in Canada. You can imagine what it will be in the United States. It might be in the trillions of dollars. And here you can see on the screen, Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, said, I think yesterday, this is the worst economy in history. And I hate saying this is unprecedented and all that kind of stuff, but I think it actually is. So actually, I woke up on Good Friday, so not that long ago, on the Easter long weekend, and I realized, you know, it was in my head when I woke up that millions of people, 6 million people in Canada are out of work, 30 million in the United States, and of course, tens or even hundreds of millions more around the world. And I said, gee, I can actually do something about that, because I used to teach entrepreneurship at the Sprott School of Business. That's at Carleton University, and then afterwards at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa. And I've helped about 1,500 different businesses get started, not just in Canada, but in the United States and overseas as well. And I said, I can do something about this, so I think I'd better. And what the message I wanted to bring today is a message of hope. And I'm just going to quote Nelson Mandela, who's I'm sure a hero to many people on this call, maybe all of us. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. We all have fears of not being able to pay our bills, not being able to help our children. 2 of my children are out of work. I have 5 kids, and 2 of them are out of work. So there's fear. I understand that. I have that too. But I also think there's great hope for a better day. And if you look back through history, through recorded history, at least 10,000 years, the people who survived the pandemics and wars and other very challenging circumstances, all will tell you that they never gave up hope. So I hope you won't either. I love this quote too. This I've had around for 20 years. To live through an impossible situation, you don't need the reflexes of a Grand Prix driver, the muscles of a Hercules, the mind of an Einstein. You simply need to know what to do. That's Anthony Greenbank. And if I were still with the Ottawa Senators, I would appoint a coach for every single NHL player. And I do coach a few NHL players, and I coach a few NFL players, not coaching them in hockey or football, but in how to sustain themselves after their careers are over. About 50% of NHL hockey players are broke within 5 years of their playing days being over, and almost 75% of National Football League players are broke. So I thought about this for a long time. I think coaching is really important. And again, if I was an owner of a National Hockey League or an NFL team, I would have a coach for everybody. So I am a coach, so that's a bit of a bias, but I really believe in that. All right, for me, the best way to teach all of you what it is I do is through case studies. So I've got a few case studies for you. If you bear with me, I'll go through them. And again, if you have any questions that come up as I go through these case studies or anything else, just put it in the chat box. I will look at that. So don't forget to mute yourself, you guys, as you come in, okay? All right, whoever isn't muted, could you please mute yourself? All right, thank you. So how do you spell resilience? So a young woman came to see me, Brianna, that's not her real name. She was 23, and here's what she was facing, okay? Rita, I have to mute you, otherwise we're gonna have too much background noise. So Brianna came to see me. She was a young woman, and she had recently been fired by the cleaning service where she was working. She was making, I think, $12 an hour, something like that. And why did they fire her? They fired her because she became pregnant. And then she told me her boyfriend left her in the lurch saying, hey, if you come after me for any financial help, I'm going to disappear. Try and find me. What a prince. Her mom and dad are divorced. Her mom has substance abuse issues. Her dad remarried and has 5 kids with the new wife, and no room for Brianna. She had no car. She had terrible credit score, and she had no place to live. She was couch surfing. So what would you do, right? So if you're feeling sorry for yourself today, let's think about Brianna. So maybe some of the solutions that people might think of: I'm going to get drunk or stoned and stay that way. I'm going to live on the street with my baby. I'm going to give up, or none of the above. So Brianna decided none of the above. And here she is in one of my offices, and she's holding up a piece of paper that shows N equals $200,000. That's $200,000 a year that she wanted to earn. Now here's a woman with not a lot of education, and of course many difficult things and challenges in her life. So I try and help people, whether it's any of you folks or myself for that matter, to find your why. That's what Simon Sinek calls it, find your why, something that's important to you. Mark Twain said it better than either of us, and that is the 2 most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. So I try and help people find their why. That's the first thing, right? So I said to Brianna, what's your why? What do you like to do? She said, Prof. Bruce, I like cleaning. I really like cleaning. Some people really hate it, but not her. And so I said, okay, well, you have some skills in the area, yeah. And you like it, you're passionate about it? Yeah, I really like it. So she started a business called Keeping It Clean, and with that goal in mind. Now, the key to getting there is not to start a business, it's to start a business with a business model. And maybe I'm saying a little bit too much here, but I am probably the world's leading expert in business models, at least one of them anyway. So Brianna and I stood at my whiteboard and we sketched all of these things out here. I'm not going to go through all the details of it. My wife calls these another Prof. Bruce spaghetti diagram. You can see why, but I simplified it for you on this thing. So what is a business model? It's pretty simple. And if you come and study with me, we're going to try and find out what your why is, and then we're going to try and wrap a modern era business model around it so that you can really, engage in something that will help you, obviously, and your family, but also help the people in your stakeholder group. Even not-for-profits and charities and foundations need business models. I started the Ottawa Senators Foundation, which helps kids, and they have a business model. Trust me on that. And that goes back almost 30 years now. So this is Brianna's Keeping It Clean business model 1.0. On the left-hand side, you see suppliers. So she needed some supplies. She had no money. she needed a vacuum cleaner, and she needed one of those, you know, Ghostbuster vacuum cleaners, because she had to have it on straps, and you know, so she, you know, that's how you do it when you're a professional cleaner. You have it on your back and you can scoot around and get things done. Needed mops and cleaning supplies. She also needed a car. She had no car, and she did take on a partner. Now, for all of you guys who've, some of you know me pretty well, I am not really keen on partners, right? St. Peter would tell you there are 2 chairs in heaven waiting for the first 2 partners to get there and still like each other. There's 2 empty chairs up there. So I'm really not keen on it, but she wanted a partner and she had a partner. That didn't last very long, mind you. So in the middle, you have the business itself, which is keeping it clean. And then on the right-hand side are the clients, all right? So you've got supply side, you've got demand side. And on the demand side, her market initially were homeowners, you know, busy executives who needed help with cleaning, and lots of elders. But then she had a real breakthrough. I had a lot of my clients at that time, this is probably now 5 years ago or 4 or 5 years ago, who were going into Airbnb in a big way. And so I introduced her to a few of them, and they really liked her. And of course, Airbnbs need a lot more cleaning than you or I, right? If somebody stays for 3 days, you've got to clean the place every 3 days. And so that was a huge breakthrough. And then you can sort of see there's an arrow going up towards the right, and that's your marketing dimension. If you don't have decent marketing, if Brianna needed to buy a Super Bowl commercial for $5 million to get her first client, obviously that's not going to work. So you guys all know what this is, right? All right, Nick, you can see it?
That was easy.
You all need an easy button. I don't know if you could hear that, but you all need an easy button. So you need a marketing dimension that you have to give some thought to. So you have to be able to connect to your clients and your customers in a cost-effective manner. How did she do that? Well, she created simple. She created some very, very, very easy to print flyers, and then she distributed it in the neighborhood that she was living in at that time. And she had a website, she had lawn signs, she had some social media, she's big on Facebook, and of course word of mouth, and she had a coach, which was me, so I could introduce her to some people as well. So that was her model. And I just thought I'd put this in here. So this is me hanging out with Brianna's baby, Toby, not his real name either, but that is the real baby, and that is Prof. Bruce. So you can see that she did have her baby, and life went on. And oh, I didn't know I had a little animation there. Okay, so how do you finance? So that's always the next question I get. And I really believe in bootstrap financing. Bootstrap financing is just a way of saying self-financing, right? So there are lots of grant programs for young people. In her case, $5,000 from the Starter Company of Ontario program. There's similar programs throughout North America. And there are used car firms, one of my clients has one, who will sell people, even with very poor credit like her, will sell them a used car, no money down, and they have a controller in the car, so if she doesn't pay every month, they can actually disable it so it doesn't start. So that's their way of collecting their monthly amount of money owing, but she was able to get a car. And you're often able to negotiate with suppliers. It's called trade credit. Trade credit is a huge source of capital. So if you go to Leon's, for example, if you buy a house and you want to put a washer, dryer, some furniture in there, you could buy $10,000 or $12,000 worth of furniture at Leon's, and they have those don't pay a cent events. You buy it here in April and you don't start paying until next February. That's just trade credit. So she could go to people who supply vacuums and do the same thing. And then she started to do something else, which I really like. It's a form of self-capitalization, which is selling gift certificates. A lot of restaurants in COVID-19 are selling gift certificates today, so that people who want to support their local restaurants, many of whom are suffering terribly, can buy gift certificates for future meals at this place. You could do the same thing with keeping it clean, and Brianna started to do that, and that's the way you could get some cash. If you think that's kind of, you know, small potatoes, it isn't. If you are living in Ottawa or Toronto, you might know Tracy Clark. She's a client of mine, and she raised $3.5 million to build this roastery in Westboro and coffee house. And she did it by selling script. So people could buy $250 worth of gift certificates from Bridgehead for about $200. So you got a little bit of a discount. And she raised $3.5 million doing it. So it is a neat way of self-capitalizing your a business. And in case you're thinking it's just, again, for local companies, Canadian Tire has been doing this forever. I'll bet you every single Canadian on this call, I don't think many Americans would have it, but have some Canadian Tire money somewhere in their house or their apartment. And of course, Disney has been selling Disney dollars forever. So that's what script is. It's an old-fashioned thing. This is Brianna's business model 2.0. And this is really important. Why are business models so crucial? Well, I'm not going to go through all the details, but what Brianna started to do was she started to hire the people that she used to work with who were making $12 or $14 or $15 an hour, and she started to pay them $18 or $20 an hour, so a living wage. But she was then kind of renting them out at $30 or $35 an hour, so she could make about $10 an hour on the independent contractors, right? That's what a business model does. And let's just look at the next slide and what the implications are. So with her original model 1.0, she could make about $70,000 a year, which is a very good step for somebody who was couch surfing and had no money. But with model number 2, where she becomes almost like an HR agency, you know, a manpower, woman power, person power agency, she can make over $200,000, and that's how she's planning to fulfill the goal of $200,000 a year. That's a real business model. And part of having a great business model is also having really strong differentiated value. In her case, her differentiated value was really, really simple, but very important. And that is she would assign a cleaner to an individual client. So if you were an elderly person, or you were a well-to-do executive, or you were an Airbnb host, the same cleaner or a pair of cleaners would always show up. So you build a relationship. That was a very important change. It wasn't some random assignment. Okay. All right. And I'm going to ask you guys this question. It's rhetorical because I'm going to answer it. Can you see another pivot coming for Brianna? Absolutely. So business models are not static. They do change, right? So every 6 months or every year, and sometimes when you have a crisis like we're in now, you have to pivot again. That's why I call the course Pivot. And due to COVID-19, can you imagine the amount of attention that will be paid in the next 2 years, or for that matter, the next decade, to cleanliness, right? Keep your workplace safe. Your offices, your stores, your meat packing plants, which are closing because hundreds of their workers are falling sick. Retirement residents, I don't have to tell you what's happening in long-term care facilities in Canada, the United States, and around the world. So I can see Brianna's business growing really big if you understand this pivot. All right, so that's enough of that. So I dealt with one case study. That's a cleaner. All right. This goes back about 15 years ago when I was teaching at the Sprott School of Business, and these 4 young fellows came to see me, 2 from Carleton and 2 from the University of Ottawa came to see me, and they were just about to graduate. They had studied entrepreneurship with me, and they did not want to get a JOB. Everybody knows what a JOB is, right? No, it doesn't stand for job. It stands for Journey of the Broke. That's what they told me. They didn't want to be, they didn't want to get a job. They wanted to be independent. They wanted to be entrepreneurs. So I said, fine. They said, can we run some ideas past you, Prof. Bruce? And I said, sure. They had 5. And each one was worse than the one before. They were really terrible. So one of the things that a good coach can do is he or she can say when you're on the right track, when they think so, and often when you're not. And in some ways, as Steve Jobs said, at Apple, he's more proud of the things Apple didn't do than what they did do. So a coach can often help you not waste 2, 3, 4, 5 years of your life going down a road that's not likely to yield success. And that's a very valuable lesson from Steve Jobs, and I guess from me today. So anyway, they had terrible ideas. I don't remember the first 3, but I remember number 4. Number 4 was the silent alarm clock. Just saying that out loud, you know that's a terrible business model. And they said, well, no, okay. I said, well, that's probably not going to work. So they said, well, we do have one last one, but that's probably not going to work either. And I said, why is that? And they said, well, there's already competition out there. I said, so what? If there's lots of cleaners out there, right? You have to have some differentiated value. I understand that. But if it's a bad idea, you won't have any competitors. But it's a bad idea. if it's a good idea, you almost certainly will have competitors. So tell me what it is. And it was gradeatext.com. So they would take students at Carleton, at University of Ottawa, and many other universities and colleges around Canada, the United States, and they would do at home or at your place of business computer repair. So if your computer network was failing or you had some malware or whatever was going wrong, they would send somebody to your house at an appointed time. So they would show up on time and they would guarantee to fix your computer, your network, whatever. It became grade A techs. And they started with almost no money, and they could convince people of the value proposition simply by saying, look, instead of you having to take your systems apart and take it to some computer repair store, wait a week and get it back and then find it still doesn't work, we'll come to your place of business, we'll come to your home, we'll fix it and guarantee you that. So it was a very compelling value proposition, and they did some very simple guerrilla marketing. I told them, I guess don't quote me on this, but I might have told them that you want to put your, grade A techs, if you're having trouble with your computer, call us. They put them on telephone poles and hydro poles around the city, and they did it with a stepladder. So it was at 9 or 10 feet. Now, when it comes to city workers, if those signs are, within easy reaching distance, they'll all be hauled down probably pretty quickly. But if you put them up at 9 or 10 feet and the city workers actually have to climb a ladder, they're probably going to be there for a few weeks. They got 5,000 clients from just putting up basically signs on telephone poles, and then they were off to the races. This is Alan Gosson on the left and Matt LaFrance on the right. They're now, I think, in their 40s. Even your students get old if you wait long enough. And so they're not in their 20s anymore. They're in their early 40s, I think. But they have over 103 employees. They probably do $30 or $35 million a year. So you can grow a tech business, you can grow a cleaning business to very substantial size. It's not obviously Google or Facebook, but it's still a significant size if you have a good business model. And these guys certainly executed very well. All right, let me show you another case study. This is actually a neighbor of mine. Jason, again, not his real name, and he was also in distress. He had lost his mom. He had a couple of tech businesses. They were just doing very poorly and losing money. And by the way, losing money is not fun, all right? It really isn't. They essentially had no income. So I said to Jason, Jason, what's your plan? And he said, well, my mom has passed. I own the home. There's no mortgage on it. I could sell that. I said, oh, it's a nice house. What are you going to sell it for? And he said, I think I can sell it for about $600,000. I said, okay. And then what are you going to do? And he said, I don't know. I guess I'll eat it. If he spends, $50,000 a year sustaining himself, he'll have a few years. And then after that, he'll have no money and he'll be older. So I said, that is a really terrible plan. I'll show you his backyard. So we're sitting in his backyard on the 3 or 4 days in summer that we get in Ottawa. And it was a beautiful day. And he has this beautiful big deck and tall white pines all over the place. And you can see him here on his back deck. And he had this swimming pool. Now, I really don't like swimming pools. They're big energy suckers. They're chemical dumps, And I said to him, Jason, why don't you rip this pool out? He said, well, why would I do that? I'm thinking about selling the house. I said, here's what my plan might be. Because I had experimented with this in Portugal. Why don't you set it up as backyard glamping? I'm sure everybody knows what glamping is. It's glamorous camping. And I think it's not a thing yet, but I think it will be a thing where you'll be able to do glamping in an urban setting. So I said, rip that pool out and put a glamping tent back there and start, it's Airbnb, but in a glamping tent. And he laughed. He said, do you think anybody would want that? I said, yes, I have clients in Porto, that's in northern Portugal, who are doing it, and it's quite successful. Porto's an industrial town of about 1.7 million people, but it has a big tourism industry. But Porto has a much longer season than we do. Ottawa, I was being silly earlier, but has about 113 days of summer. That's it. So I said, why don't you buy one of these? These are yurts built by one of my former architecture students. Her name is Anissa Zato, and she builds them in Pickering, Ontario. And they're really beautiful. They're quite big. They're 21-foot diameter, so it's about 330 square feet of floor area, and they're insulated. They're really nice. I bought 2 of them last year. And you can see the inside, lots of light. And what's really cool about the stuff that Anissa builds is they come with, you know, with a chimney, and you can put a wood burning furnace or a propane furnace or a gas furnace in there, and they're good down to -40. The Mongols have been using this for at least 5 or 10,000 years, and the only place colder, capital city colder than Ottawa is Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. So if they can live in these things in Mongolian winters, you can certainly manage it here. But look at the implications. So when I did the find your why thing with him, I found he was really excited about being an energy healer, something he was studying. He didn't really like tech. And I said, let's build a personal business for life, a PB4L, that's just my word for it, personal business for life. Wind down those tech businesses, because stop losing money, right? And instead of selling your principal residence, let's put a new mortgage on it for $400,000. Take that money out tax-free, because there's no income tax on this, just a loan from a financial institution, and allow you to develop your business and also have some cash. And we're going to animate, that's my way of saying, add new revenue streams to your existing property. In this case is principal residence. So he could stay in the family home, and he is now part of something called the FIHAJ movement, for every home a job. We're all doing that now. And what I'm trying to do with the course that I'm going to start in May, it will go May, June, and July, is I'm going to help people start businesses that will sustain them and their families throughout this COVID-19 crisis, but well beyond that as well. FIHAJ is a term that was coined by Isabelle Bradbury, an architect in Quebec, for every home a job. And he will actually improve his neighborhood and community, because I think when people live and work in one location, you know, the community is safer. It's more animated. It's more active. I think it's a better community. That's my personal opinion. Some people don't agree with that. But the idea for me of getting, you know, a rich dude getting up in his $1 million mansion, getting in his car and driving an hour through traffic to go and sit in an office building for 8 or 10 hours where windows don't open, they've got those horrible fluorescent lights, and of course today you can get sick. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think the gigpreneur, the side hustle, the work from home thing is going, it was big before, but it's going to be much bigger now. And he can live and breathe again. So we think he can make about $50,000 a year from his urban glamping. And then of course he's got his energy healing practice on that. So he can stay in his home, keep his home, have a little bit of cash, and also get involved in a business that he truly loves. All right, so that's, excuse me, I'll just take a quick sip of water here. So that's another case study I wanted to show you. I won't show you too many more, but I've got a few. This is another former student of mine, and this is Ryan North. You can see him here. He's a nice looking young man, and he's like about 6'8", so I feel like a midget next to him. Maybe that's not politically correct. I feel very short next to him. And everybody, by the way, if you come and study with me next month, May, June, and July, everybody who does that has to start a business. I don't care if it's a t-shirt manufacturing business, but you have to start something. Same thing I did at Sprott and at Telford. All of my students were required in the 3 months they studied with me to actually start a business. So Ryan is an IT guy, and he comes to me and he says, Bruce, I've got my idea, because, you know, if you study with me, you're going to tell me what your idea is, and I'm going to say, that's a great idea, or maybe not so great. So he came to see me and he said, I'm going to start an online comic strip. I said, Ryan, I thought you were an IT guy. He said, I am. I said, can you draw? He said, not a lick. So I said, this is kind of, you know, remember I said you got to have some skills, but it turned out he did have some skills. So this is what he started. This is, I think, at least 15 years ago. It's called Dinosaur Comics. And you can see he has 3 dinosaurs in here. He's got the big green guy. That's a T-Rex. He's a real male chauvinist. And then he's got 2 female dinosaurs, the sort of the beigey one and the orangey one, who are wise and warm and whatever else. And this is just clip art. And he has published this every day for probably 15 years now. with 6 panels that never change. He wants to apply to the Guinness Book of Records for the longest published daily comic strip where the images never change. The only thing that changes is the dialogue. How weird is that? But as you start to read his comic strip, and you realize there's this really funky, weird kind of intelligence going on, and it's really quite neat. He has hundreds of thousands of followers. When he goes to Comic-Con, now I'm not sure when we're going to get to have another Comic-Con, but the next Comic-Con that comes, he gets mobbed. I mean, he's just mobbed. He's hugely popular now. So he started this business for a negative amount of money. So when I tell you can start businesses for practically no money down, it really is true. He bought a couple of domain names. He had to pay for a little bit of web hosting. He had to pay for some color printing. But he won the business model competition, which I used to run, which gave him $500 of cash. It only cost him $60 to start this thing. So he started this for a negative $440. Pretty good startup. Wait till you hear what happened. So this is Ryan today. He's a little bit older today. And he bought this domain name. By the way, it still works. I won't mention what it is. You can read it. But if you put that into your search bar, his Dinosaur Comics will pop up. And the only marketing he ever did was he printed this on the, I think probably on the university printers in color, this T-Rex with that URL that you see there. And because he's so tall, he would stand on desks and he would tape these things to the ceiling in these lecture halls all across the campus. And because he was so tall, nobody could actually take it down. So if you're in a Prof. Bruce lecture, like one you're taking here today, and you get bored and you're looking up at the ceiling and you see this URL, so what the heck is that? So people started to check it out. That's the only marketing he ever did. No, wait. So a few years later, after he had a following of a few 100,000 people, he did a publishing event called To Be or Not to Be, a Choosable Path Adventure. So he did a Hamlet where you could decide, it was an online thing, where you could decide to be whichever character you wanted, and you could even change the outcomes, right? So, I don't know if William Shakespeare would really approve of that, but that's what he did. So I said to Ryan, how are you going to finance this? And he said, easy, I'm going to put it on Kickstarter. I'm going to try and raise $20,000 US. Because, you have to be able to finance some of this stuff, like Brianna did. Oh, excuse me. And so he tried to raise $20,000 on Kickstarter, and he failed to do that. He raised $580,905 US instead, because there was just this pent-up demand for Shakespeare and for something new, something that was, and he had hundreds of thousands of followers. So he ended up with 15,352 backers pledging different amounts, anything from like $15 to $1,000. He ended up with $580,000, and I think it was the #1 most funded publishing project, to that point in time. So. Some of the startups have been, tech startups, but some of them have been in services, and we've got at least one that I recall in the comic space. And Ryan is going to be a guest lecturer, so you're going to hear directly from Ryan, and he'll tell you a lot more about it than I could in this webinar. All right, here's I think this might be my last or second last case study, and I put this in here because Jennifer Clark is a friend of mine. She's an angel. And we were actually talking about this a few days ago. This is a sweat lodge. If you don't know what a sweat lodge is, it's where you go with an indigenous person, perhaps, and you heat up rocks and you go inside this confined space and you sweat out some of the poisons. And this was an indigenous person I know. He's quite elderly, and myself and some younger people went out to help him build a new sweat lodge because the old one was a little bit falling apart. And you can see it's next to a pond. I actually sold him this lot a generation ago. And I've got a couple other pictures. So you've got some firewood, you've got the sweat lodge. You can see the pond, it's beautiful. And he had fallen on hard times. And I said to him, I'll call him Joseph, that's not his real name. I said, Joseph, I think a lot of people would come and study with you. He's an elder. He was trained, he's an indigenous person. He's quite famous. I won't mention his real name. And he had been very sick as a young man in his late 30s, early 40s, very sick. So he went back to his tribe and reported to his elders back then. that he was not feeling right. And they put him in a sweat lodge, I think for 3 days, and he sweated out all these poisons, like his skin was oozing like this green stuff, he told me. And because he was eating the wrong kinds of foods. An indigenous person is more oriented towards nuts and berries and fruits and other kinds of things, meat, not processed foods. We eat a lot of processed foods, and they said, you have to stop that, you're going to die. So he learned how to be a sweat lodge master from these people. And when I said to him, lots of people would come and study with you and they would pay you for that, he said, I can't charge them anything. I didn't know that. And he said, no, sweat lodge training has to be free. So I went, whoa, okay. I hear you. So what I suggested instead is, why don't you put 8 of these yurtas around, Anisazetos yurts around this pond and charge people for the yurts, right? They glamping, and people pay a lot of money for these. So when we did the numbers with a younger person who was helping him, we realized he could make between $200,000 and $300,000 a year renting these yurts, but providing free training, sweat lodge training. So people would come and have a great experience in the outdoors, but also a great learning experience. And so, these business models really can be very powerful, and they can change lives. And that's what I would hope to do with you guys if you come and study with me. All right, so that I think is the last case study. I did promise you a little bit more about me. I'll go through this very quickly. More about me. I'm a real estate investment and business coach. I am a licensed real estate broker with Century 21, so I'm armed and dangerous. I've been a prof, both at the University of Ottawa and at Carleton. And I'm best known for founding the Ottawa Senators and building the Canadian Tire Center. But that's a generation ago. I built more than 1,200 homes, dozens of office buildings and shopping plazas. But probably I'm most proud today, anyway, of having coached, mentored, and taught over 1,500 startups, many of them quite successful. And I think that's enough about me. Last slide. So this is my educational background. I went to McGill in Montreal for my civil engineering degree, and then I was in Australia for many years, where I studied at the University of New South Wales and the Australian National University. My oldest son, Andrew, and his wife and 2 little grandsons are in Canberra now. He went to my alma mater, Australian National University in Canberra. So why do I coach, mentor, and teach? I got into this after I left the university. I retired when I was 60. I'm 68 now, so not young anymore. But my dad, before he passed, said people should never retire. You should change what you do, but don't just sit at home and watch TV. That would be horrible. And so I thought, after I was leaving the university, what was I going to do? And I thought about some different things. And I actually had a coach of my own who helped. She helped me find my why, right? And I know elder poverty rates are increasing, and a lot of people are not happy with the financial advice they're getting from their financial planners, their bankers, lawyers, accountants, you name it. And it's very hard to live on your CPP. The average CPP in 2018 was $555. That is really, really horrible. In the United States, Social Security is a little bit more. And in Canada, they do top it up when you turn 65. Your OAS, I think, would add probably another $600 to that. But still, it's really hard to live. So I thought maybe I could do something about it. And now that I've been doing this coaching thing for close to 8 years, I realized that the longest journey is the one where you never take the first step. And it's really hard for people. Nobody really likes change. We're all a little bit afraid of change, and maybe rightly so. But if you don't act, you will get the same result next year as you had this year and last year, et cetera. So I think acting is really important. This is a quote I really believe. That if you come and study with me, this is an ancient Persian poet, Rumi. He was a Sufi mystic, and he said, as you start to walk on the way appears. And I really believe that. I mean, if you take a decision to act, and you're going to find your own side hustle, your own gig, you're going to have create your own job, and maybe a little bit more than that. When you start down, the universe will listen, and it will send you some answers. I really believe that. So I have a little exercise I'd like everybody to try. And I want to know if you have time, send me an email. Why do you get up every day? Why should you and your crew get up every day? What gets me up every day? I try and help people take care of themselves and their families for 3 generations by owning their own personal business for life and maybe some real estate too. And that's the way I can contribute. And it really gets me up every day. It really does. I'm not just saying it because I'm on the call with you guys. Like this morning, I was up at 3:30. It's now 12 hours later. And, it gets me up. I'm not tired. I just like what I do and I enjoy it. And there's no better satisfaction for me than seeing the people that I coach and mentor and teach succeed. And many of them have succeeded and some have exceeded expectations. So I'd like you to try and see if you could come up with what gets you excited, what gets you up every day, and send it to me, not 10 pages. I'm talking 2 sentences, maybe 3, but that's it. All right? So the course, I'll talk a little bit about the course. And remember, guys, if you have any questions at the end, just put them in the chat box. Some of you have done that, but if you have questions, because it's more fun for me if you have a question. So even if you don't have a question, invent one. Anyway, so the first class will be May 14th, and we're going to start at noon Eastern time to 13:30. So even if you have work, maybe you could get a lunch hour, maybe an hour and a half. I will record every session so that they'll be available if you want to rewatch them or watch them on your own. So the first class is going to be Thursday, May 14th, so a couple of weeks from now, from noon until 13:30 Eastern time. And when you sign up for the class, if you do, you'll get a Zoom link every week as we go through the course, May, June, and July. We'll do it on Zoom, obviously. And our first guest is Jamie Montero, another client of mine, who started Purdy Paws. Again, another woman, single mom again. She has an incredible business now. She owns 2 stores, which are pet grooming, and she has 2 mobile vans, which is mobile pet grooming, and she has a plan to take this thing, blow it up across Canada and the United States. You'll hear all about that. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole course schedule because there's like a lot of classes here, but I'm just going to highlight that's our first one, and I really hope you guys will join in and enjoy listening to these people. People like Ryan North with Dinosaur Comics, people like Jamie as well. So we go through June, July, August, May, June, and July, I apologize. And the last class, just so you know, is in July 23rd. And we'll have a special guest for that as well. And then there will be a final exam. I'm a prof, so I can't resist. I'll ask you to write a final exam. You don't have to write it, but I want you to write it. And if you actually write it and you pass, I'm sure all of you will, you actually get a graduation certificate signed by me. And that actually counts for something. If you show it to investors or partners, banks, lenders, it actually does count for something. So it's not a university accreditation, I get that, but it's from somebody who actually has some standing, I think. There are some assignments. The first one I want you to do, whether you take the course or not, is what gets you and your crew up each and every day. Send that to me. You should do that anyway. But then there'll be some assignments if you take the course. You'll be doing a message map and an elevator pitch. So you'll practice that. You're going to do a business model like the ones you saw for Brianna. I'm going to teach you how to use a spreadsheet properly. Some of you may not want to learn, but yeah, you're going to learn. And you're going to actually do a business plan. So there you go. Even if you have an existing business, I still want you to practice your message map, your elevator pitch, your financial analysis, your business model, all of that. I'm going to make you do it even if you have an existing business, because you want to make that a better business, a bigger business, right? Not just so you can have a nicer house and a nicer car, but so that you can provide jobs for other people and you can provide benefits for your stakeholder group. It's very important, in my opinion. All right. Okay, what are the topics covered in the course? There's a lot, and you can see already I teach through case studies because people don't really learn from textbooks that well. At least in my experience, they learn from case studies. So you're going to hear from lots of really neat guests like Jamie and like Ryan. We're going to talk about how you find your why. We're going to try and make you or help you find your why. We're going to talk about finance a lot. I'm going to talk about how to make you more creative, and there are ways to do that. We're going to talk about marketing in a big way, because I've got some really cool stuff that I think I could teach you about marketing. Because again, you know, if you can't find clients, you know, and you don't have an easy button, you won't be in business very long. All right, let's see what else we have. There's some readings. So if you sign up for the course, I will send you some readings, 10 Terryisms. I won't talk about that in detail, but you'll get that. I want you to read that. 25 Steps to Entrepreneurial Success, which I wrote. Things every startup needs to know about business models, and things every startup needs to know about self-capitalization. So you get lots of readings from me. And all of you, by the way, now should have these. I promised everybody on the webinar that you'd get Business Model Illustrations. That's one of my books. So you should already have that. If you don't, let me know by email. You should, I tried to surprise everybody on the upside. My students and I put together over 1,000 quotes to inspire people. You should have a copy of that now too. So if you're having a down day, look for some of those quotes like the Nelson Mandela quote that I used earlier. You'll all get a copy of this. This is the $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau. And if there's one book I would like to rip the cover off and put my own on and claim it's mine, this would be one of them. There's only about 2 or 3 because it's so good. I mean, it's just fantastic. It tells you all kinds. I think there's probably 50 or 100 examples of really cool startups. So you'll all get a copy of this. I wish I had written it. I'm almost finished this book. I'm not sure if I could finish it during the course, but I'll try. It's called Gadgets and Gizmos, How to Tell If You Own a Real Business or Just an Expensive Hobby. It's very close to being finished. And I'm going to work on a new book, which will absolutely be later this year or early next year, called Boom, the Book of Original Business Models. I have about 150 fully fleshed out business models, which I will share with you guys in the course. So if you're not sure what you want to do, there are lots of good business models. And there will be people in the course who will teach you stuff that you can actually implement, like literally within the 3 months that you're studying with me. So I'm hoping to get Boom done at some point if I get the time. Where are you going to find your next great idea? I got that question 20 years ago. I got that question 15 years ago, and I'm going to get that question in the next 3 months. You know, a good place to find ideas is a library. You ever heard of a library? You go to a library, and you can look at the Encyclopedia Britannica circa 1933, and a lot of really great ideas have come out of old crafts that are updated with modern business models. And I'll show you some of those during the course. So there are plenty of places to get ideas. One of my clients started doing these handmade paper, hand-stitched mini notebooks. It's an Etsy store, and had a lot of success updating paper-making techniques and putting a modern business model around it, and there you go. So what is your investment in the course? It's a ridiculously low $100 plus HST a month for 3 months. All right, so I priced it as a give back to you folks and to anybody who wants to take it. I really want to do this, and I would like, I hope I'll have a number of people who will want to study with me, but I priced it because in COVID-19, I realized even if you're on the CERB benefit, the $2,000 every 4 weeks, I felt people could afford $100 plus HST. So that's it. And there is one other cost, which will be if you decide to take the final exam, I am going to charge you $35 plus HST for that. To register for the course, probably the easiest way for me would be if you go to my website, which is Bruce M. Firestone. You have to put the M in there, brucemfirestone.com/pivot. So the whole course description is there. And if you scroll down far enough, you can see that there's a form you have to fill in. There's a little questionnaire. It's very simple. You can just copy it, put it on a Word document, put in a credit card or e-transfer me the $100 plus HST, and we'll get you going if you want to do it. That's the easiest thing. If you can't find it for some reason, you can always email me. I ask people not to call because I have about 450 active clients, and if everybody called me every day, I would never get anything done. So email me if you can. If you can't find it, just email me. I'll send you the form. It's a PDF. All right. And who should sign up? Is there a minimum age? You know, some of the greatest businesses of our time were started by people who are teenagers and in their early 20s. So if you have kids at home who are 18, 19, 20, even 16, 17, as long as they have your permission, I'll take teenagers to seniors. The fastest growing number of startups today, believe it or not, are the 50 ups. and 60 ups and even 70 ups. I have elders that I've been teaching how to build Etsy stores, right? Etsy is just like a crafting place, but it's fantastic. So I'll take everybody from teens to seniors, but if they're 16, 17, 18, they do need their parents' permission, okay? And I wanted to say, I'm almost done. The difference between an old person and a young person isn't the number of times you've been around the sun. That is not the difference. I know old 30-year-olds and young 70-year-olds. The difference is the moment you say, I know everything, you're starting to get old. I think I learn almost as much from the people I coach and teach as they do from me. And I'm learning things at this age, I'm 68, that are, I mean, I think other than when I was a little tiny boy, I think I'm learning more now than I've ever learned before, as we're forced to adapt and adopt new ways of doing things. And that all comes from the coaching and the teaching that I do. So as long as you've got an open mind and you're willing to act and you're willing to start a business, you can come and study with me. I don't care what age you are. This is the last thing I'll do. What is the gig economy? Even before COVID-19 hit, I thought the gig economy was our future. I don't think having a job is the future for a lot of people. I think they're going to be more and more entrepreneurs. I just pulled these stats out. This is back in 2015, so 5 years before we got whacked by this pandemic. 1.5 million Canadians back then were self-employed, many of them older, over 45. In tech, you're considered old at 40, and a lot of the tech guys, men and women, have come to study with me. And 500,000 Canadians are entering the ranks of the self-employed every year. Think about that. It's going to be a lot more. 6 million Canadians are unemployed right now, 30 million Americans, and I think it's going to hit 40 million soon. So I can't teach 40 million people, but I can teach, a few. So what are some of the gigs that people are doing? Home-based nail bars, in-home elder care, registered massage therapy, physiotherapy. We're going to hear from a former student of mine, Erica Godwin, who has this incredible dog walking business. It's incredible. When you hear about it, you would think that there couldn't possibly be a business model in dog walking. There is. Her platform is called Barketing. Just in case you're wondering, that's barking and marketing. Anyway, so home-based daycare. We're going to hear from somebody who runs a pet grooming business too. That's Jamie. Home-based yoga studio, hair salon, home-based tutoring. That's kind of what I do. Home-based bookkeeping. Who knew? Change is coming, you guys. Change is here. I mean, it's kind of adapt or not, right? So we are going to act to change our lives. So I want to wish everybody well. I'm going to take a few questions now on the chat box, but I just want to make sure everybody hears from me that I do know that we're losing many of our parents and grandparents, and this was the greatest generation ever. They took us from horse and buggies to the moon. All these beautiful systems that we're using today, these computers, Zoom, everything that we see here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. All of this comes from from that generation, and they're in these long-term care facilities and retirement residences that are being just horribly afflicted by this pandemic. So it is a very, very difficult time. So I recognize that, but we have to work towards a better future. I know that my mother-in-law, who's 95, wants us to get on with life and move on. If my dad were alive, he would say the same thing. So I'll say that to you. So I'm going to just check the chat box. If you have any questions, please, it really warms my heart if you do. Can we get the links for the book, says Rita. So Rita, could you please email me and say you don't have the books? There's 2 of them, and I will certainly send them to you. So you've got my email. Somebody said Christian is awesome. That would be one of my guest lectures. Thank you very much for that, Rob. What else do we have? Oops. Yeah, somebody noticed that, Tony Ann noticed that Brianna's real name showed up on one of my doodles, so I apologize for that. Sandy says she's already signed up. Yay, that's great. Is there anything else? I'm in, says somebody. This is Mount Royal Capital. I'm in for Prof. Bruce. Thank you very much, Mount Royal Capital. Ryan says, sounds good, Bruce. Looking forward to the class. I'm back at uni and I just got out. So, okay, well, that's good. So listen, if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. What if I can't do the course during the day, somebody asks. Okay, that's a good question, Tiffany. So I did say to you guys that every single class will be recorded. And so what happens is, and I'll do it with this as well, as soon as I finish this Zoom conference, the video will download to my computer, then I will upload it to YouTube and everybody gets a link. So even if you can't come to the class live, and people, sometimes they can, sometimes they can't, everybody can catch up, no problem at all. Anything else? Well, I can say I got a nice a comment here from Rob, another Rob. You're an amazing person. I agree with that, Rob. That's a very good comment. Anyway, I think we've kind of beaten this one to death. I want to thank everybody again. Oh, here's one more. This is from Fan Saves. Looking forward to this, Bruce. I'm the co-founder of a tech startup and we're super busy, but I've had another idea for a long time that I want to develop. Seems like a perfect opportunity. Jennifer Clark, my angel, says, thanks, Prof. Bruce. I look forward to working with this group. And listen, to all of you guys, be well. And like I said, hope is a very important part of the human condition. Let's hope for better days ahead for all of us. All right? So everybody, let's wave goodbye. I'll see you guys, and thanks for listening.